Good morning, Gamesline. I'm here with Seth, creator of Arzette, our newest hit on the Philips CDI in 1990 something.
Yeah. I don't know about all that.
Every time I see a little bit more of this game, and when I played the demo of it, I was just kind of floored that this could even exist.
I get that sometimes.
Because like you're making a fan-inspired game of a really wonderful art media project. A game, you know, Legend of Zelda, Wand of Gamelon, Legend of Zelda, Faces of Evil. These are not things that, you know, people are like, that they love, but that they do. They do. They're so inspired by the visual style of this game and how it plays. That how did you come into this project and putting it together?
Yeah, so obviously my first introduction to the games were the memes, right? Like all
the memes. Let's talk about the memes.
I sort of have like a soft spot for like sort of bad games or games that have like a sort of like, you know, poor reputation, especially after learning like the story behind the games. I was just really drawn to them, especially like the visual style, and they actually had like genuine potential, like with the gameplay loop. So yeah, that was just, I'd always thought that, you know, it'd be a pretty cool idea to try to put my own spin on it and make a spiritual successor with the same sort of aesthetics.
In this new interactive animated adventure, Arzette must explore the kingdom of Faramore. Slay fearsome foes. Acquire powerful items. Discover secrets. Assist colorful characters.
Allow me to heal you.
And defeat Dimer's minions.
Here to challenge me?
What do you think that you're trying to like get people to see with Arzette that maybe they didn't ever get to play the Philips CDI game that you're trying to show here?
So they're very linear stage-based games.
Yep.
But there's, you know, lots of power-ups and collectibles, and you revisit stages with those items, and you sort of like unlock new paths and find new items. So
I didn't know that. That's yeah.
In that sense, it can be a little non-linear.
Right.
I love that sort of gameplay style, and I really latched onto it for Arzette.
That makes a lot of sense, and that also leads me to talking about Arzette herself, our heroine of this game. What's her personality like? Because in the demo we get this little tiny, like, very little slice of it, but I want to know more about her.
Yeah, so she's obviously very self-confident, with a bit of a cheesy sense of humor, but sort of our thinking behind her would be she'd be very grounded and like, yes, I'm very self-assured and very confident, and she's kind of surrounded by a lot of strange creatures and people.
There's this bizarreness she takes on.
So she has to sort of like bounce off that and be like, okay, and just sort of like deal with it.
Okay, just let it roll off me.
But yeah.
In the demo we see her fight a horseman
named Clive. Yeah.
Named Clive, who doesn't know that he's making a bunch of horse-based puns.
Right. It's almost like he's not aware that he's a horse. That was sort of the idea.
Yeah. And so the entire time she just kind of like giggles through this whole thing.
He's very insulted by her laughter.
Without any lines of dialogue, I'm seeing like her interpretation of this bizarre world.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's it was really cool without saying anything at all. Like, yeah, there's a lot of presence here.
Right.
I also want to talk about the sword itself. What did you call it? It's
a smart sword.
It's a smart sword.
Yeah, it only hurts those that aren't friendly. So you stab. That's sort of her way of interacting with the world. She just stabs everything.
Right. So she takes her sword out. You only have the one button, you know, sword, and it has this little tiny reach, and it kind of makes this like janky kind of feeling. But then you also use that on all NPCs.
Right.
You just walk up to a guy and just go. You don't say anything because you don't really have words to say things with. But you have a sword.
Right.
How did that all come about?
Well, that's inspired by the original games, where you actually did only have like a couple button limitations. So for this game, you can interact with stuff by like pressing up on D-pad and stuff, and there's obviously more buttons for more actions, but that was just one of the traditional things from the games that inspired Arzette that I wanted to carry over, was the sword interacting with everything.
There's a lot of traditional aspects here. And I think when I played through that first level, I felt it immediately because I died immediately, where you have a very small jump angle, you have this like very short reach, and you have to use it inside of a space where enemies are shooting at you, you have a large hitbox, and these are all things that I'm like, oh, this feels dated, you know, this feels aged, but then inside of all of that, there's all these nice little touches. There's all these little, like, you know, when you do die, it just fades softly to the first screen. So how do you balance things that you want to make in that older style and new stuff?
Yeah, we definitely wanted to modernize the game as much as we could, but also retain the feeling of those games. So I definitely wanted to like make like sensible touches. Like you can see where all the enemies are. They don't infinitely respawn.
That's it. Yep, I noticed that one too. That was a good one.
Keys are found in the same area that you unlock doors in. So there's none of the whole like you find a key like 2 worlds away and it unlocks a door you had no idea that it did. And you know, stuff like that. Obviously making the controls and stuff a lot tighter than the original games were, and a lot more feels a lot better to play.
I would agree.
Large margin.
Oh God, yeah, no, it infinitely more playable with shorter checkpoints too. It all felt like really crisp. When it comes to the memes, when it comes to putting in, you know, things that you've seen before that inspired you to make this, and then like putting in your own stuff too, how do you strike that balance?
So it was important to me and my co-writer, who's also my producer, Outta, that we make a very sincere game that feels very genuine. There's really no irony or cynicism, and it's not full of references. I mean, obviously there's like a couple because you know what you're doing, right? You got
right.
Featuring hand-painted backgrounds, animated scenes,
My goods will improve your fortunes, so long as you improve mine.
an outstanding original score, and talent from previous interactive adventures. Good! This will be a journey you won't want to miss.
You gotta do something, but for the most part, we really tried to stay away from that and just sort of write a game that feels like it would be the natural, like
a very genuine love letter to
any of the memes that are created or not from me. So hopefully that's it.
But there's also like a lot of references to other CDI games in there too. So when you're putting in all of that kind of stuff, how do you decide what you want to put in?
Basically just things that are very iconic and can kind of be incorporated like more subtly and not like super in your face.
Because it gives a little bit of Hotel Mario in there too, and yeah, no, I just think that that's really cool, and it really adds to that feeling of how like it's a love letter. It's not ironic. It's supposed to be, you know, a very pure expression of like, hey, this was a weird thing that existed, and because of how weird it is, we loved it, and this is what we loved out of it.
Right.
Yeah, God, no, I'm very inspired by the whole project. I think it's really cool. What's the timeline for it?
Well, we're almost finished, but as far as release timing goes, all I can say right now is coming soon.
Cool. And how big is the project supposed to, you know, be or something? Is it?
I'd say probably in terms of like gameplay length, it really depends on the player because, like I said, there's a lot of like exploration. So
reasons to go back and play through things again.
Yeah, so it really depends, but I'd say like probably like 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, that sounds meaty. It sounds like plenty to work with. Oh, I remember what I wanted to ask about. Art and sound, art and voice acting. How was it building this balance? Because if I'm remembering right, those CDI games were like a Swedish company or something getting the Zelda license, or like some kind of Nordic country.
Well, it was actually,
and this was their interpretation of it, so it has a very specific like art history to it.
Yeah, so it was a Boston-based studio called Animation Magic, and for like all of the cutscenes, they flew in a bunch of Russian animators.
Really?
And put them up in a apartment building and sort of just told them to go nuts, make what they make what they made. So
that's amazing.
yeah.
And voice acting. All of the voices that I've heard, they just sound fantastic. They have a lot of presence and gravitas to them. When you found your shopkeeper character, how did that go? How did that go about?
Yeah, so we professionally casted for the game, and we have lots of professional voice actors. We actually have a couple of the original voice actors from the games that Arzette was inspired by. The voice of Link and Zelda from those games, and they're doing a few voices for the game. But yeah, it was great. You know, we just casted and we sort of directed towards just doing like a Saturday morning cartoon. Right?
I feel like there's like this like parallel, right? Because the parts that were professional about the CDI game also, you know, they've professionally casted voices for the CDI game back in the day.
Right.
And so, like, do you feel like you're treading that same kind of history in a way?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There's no way we can recreate the exact conditions that led to those
and you don't want to,
Yeah, and we don't want to do that. So we're just sort of, like you said, making a passion project based on all the things that we really liked about those games.
How do you feel at this point, being like in a position where you're going to add to this mimetic history? Because that's kind of a weird spot to be in. I know from folks who've made YouTube poops and folks who've made that, they don't really feel like they're building on their own history, but that's what you do anytime you make remixes, anytime you make YouTube poops, anytime you do that kind of thing, and you're kind of adding to that in a way. Does that feel fulfilling?
It feels fairly fulfilling.
That sounds cool.
Not what I set out to do, but if people find that sort of enjoyment in it, then I'm super flattered. So.
Do you want other people to make YouTube poops of Arzette?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. There's already quite a few just
Has there been?
Alone. Oh, yeah.
In this new interactive animated adventure, Arzette must explore the arts of the kingdom, slay fearsome foes, acquire powerful items, discover secrets,
Lamp oil, rope, bombs.
assist colorful characters,
You are one ugly motherfucker.
And where is it going to come out on? I didn't ask that question.
It comes out on PC via Steam, Switch, PS4, PS5, and Xbox Series.
Awesome. And you're with Limited Run putting this all together, so is it going to have a physical release and stuff?
Going to have a physical release. Yep.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Awesome. Well, Seth, thank you for your time. Thank you for hanging out with us today.
Of course.
And I'm just very excited for Arzette.
Thank you.